Hi software, welcome back guys. So we are today going to build on to what we learned with Collide2D yesterday. Yesterday we were just using one function from Collide2D to check to see if our mouse was touching an ellipse. Now we're going to check to see if our mouse is touching a few different shapes, and it's going to give you guys some time to explore the documentation as well. So please make sure you guys have opened up the starter code. It should look something like what you see on my screen right now. It is linked in your Google document. Then go ahead and go up to the top, click File, Duplicate so that you guys have your own copy. Remember, you need to be logged in to do that. Once you have done that, go to File, Save so that it saves in your account. And then let's get started. I'm once again going to make my text a little bit bigger for you guys so it's easier for you to see in the video. Remember that the best practice is to have your video chilling in one window and then next to it resize your window so you have a side-by-side with my code along. So you can see and type at once, and a reminder that you can always pause, rewatch, slow down, whatever you need to do. I'm going to move at a normal pace and you guys are going to adjust for whatever you need. Now, things you will notice about this code is once again when we hit play, we have things showing up on our screen, but you will see that we also have this message at the bottom saying P5 Collide and then a version number. This tells us that the Collide2D library is once again linked. If you wanted to check for yourself, you could click that arrow, head back to the index.html, make sure that that script tag with Collide2D is there. If you don't see it, that means it is probably not linked. And as a reminder, if you guys wanted to use Collide in like any other project, you would either need to link it yourself by finding that script tag in the Collide documentation, which we'll look at momentarily, and pasting it into the head of your HTML page, or making a copy of the blank Collide2D template that I have put in the resources of your weekly work and also in the Google Classroom. So let's get going, guys. Today we have a line, we have two different rectangles, one is like more of a square, one is a rectangle, and we have a triangle that we are all going to make collisions with. And we together are going to do collide with the line today, just because I think it's the most complicated one and I want to get it out of the way. So very similar to yesterday, if we scroll through our code, everything lives in the draw function. And you can see that all of the stuff that like lives on the screen forever, like those actual shapes, I have coded towards the top. And then I have like a delineation where the code along is going to be and where your task is. That is still inside draw. Draw ends on line 45 right now. But that is after those shapes on the screen. And again, this is not always the best or like the most perfect way to code, but I think when we're starting out, this is one way to help keep us organized so that we're looking back and making changes. It's very clear to us when we are changing like the constant display versus when we are changing the logic that controls how our code interacts. So let's go ahead and just take a peek at our line and take a peek at our challenge. I see the line has a stroke weight, a stroke, the line itself. And my challenge is to change the stroke weight of the line if the mouse is touching it, and change it back to normal if the mouse is not. So I know, once again, something is changing in my program. I hear this idea that something should be varying. In my mind, I should be thinking variable, variable, variable. I'm going to need a variable to control something in my program. So I'm going to head up to the top of my screen, and I'm going to make a variable called LWeight. And I'm just going to make a note that this stands for line stroke weight. If you ever find yourself abbreviating names for things, please make sure that you name in the comments what it controls. Otherwise, it's going to be a huge headache for you later. Also remember that stroke weight controls the thickness of the line. So I'm not working with color this time, I'm working with thickness. I want to give L weight, and this is an L, not a number. Variables cannot start with numbers. I need to give L weight a starting value, and I'm going to say that to start, let's have it start at 5. Like, I just think 5 is like a nice thick stroke weight. And just like yesterday, if I were to hit play now, nothing has changed. And just like yesterday, that is because I have not utilized this variable in my code now. If I want it to actually control something, I need to find a place to plug it in. Since I said I want it to control stroke weight, I need to take away this one and replace it with L weight. Now when I hit play, I should see I have like a fatter, thicker line, and that's the line I'm going to interact with. So now I like to save frequently, so let's make sure we save this, and then let's head down in our code along. I'm just going to give myself a little space here. And just again, I want to check and see, is my mouse touching the line? And if so, I want to increase or decrease the stroke weight. If not, I want to change it back to normal. That's my goal. Normal being 5 here. So because I know I'm looking for a collision, I'm looking to see if two things are touching, that tells me it is time to head to the Collide2D reference sheet and find what I need. So I am still scrolled all the way down to Collide point circle at the bottom. I'm just going to scroll right on up, and I'm going to scroll until I find documentation table of contents. Remember from yesterday that this documentation table of contents is like our bread and butter. We're going to use it to find what we need, and when we click on that function, it's going to take us somewhere that shows us what needs to go into that function. So again, I'm looking for my mouse to collide with a point, or to collide with a line, and we said yesterday there's no mouse or cursor here, but I know that my mouse is a point, so I'm looking for point line, point circle, point ellipse, point line. So I'm going to click on this one that says collide point line, and it's going to jump me down to the spot on the page where collide point line is. So I'm going to go ahead and click. It brings me down here. And again, similar to yesterday, I see this little description of what it does, point to line collision in 2 dimension, perfect, and optional buffer which expands the hit zone on the line. And that would be this last thing here. This is part of why we're talking about it. I also have this really big code sample, which can be useful if we're great at reading code. But if this feels confusing, we can 100% just focus on this line in gray, which is what my function is and what needs to be fed into my function. So just like yesterday, I like to copy and paste this into my code as a comment. That's what I'm going to be using, and I will in fact probably also copy and paste it into my if statement as well. But this just lets me see it, it lets me reference it, I don't have to click back and forth. Can't recommend it enough. Anything you guys are using that you don't want to click back and forth, leave it as a comment. So directly underneath here, I'm going to start my conditional. And again, guys, please remember to pause or rewatch if you feel like I'm moving quickly. My conditional is always an if. It's going to be checking to see if my mouse is touching my line. I'm going to come back and fill that in later. And then I need some curly braces for where my actions go. And I'll get to my else later on. So let's right away just paste in my point line function. And then let's go through and fill in values. So we said point X and point Y, that should be my mouse. So I need mouse X and I need mouse Y. The computer does not understand what point X and point Y are. Those are just filler words. And then I see, instead of the circle X, circle Y I saw yesterday, I just see XY, X2, Y2. And these are line values. So my line has a beginning XY and an ending XY. That's what is coming from line 14, where my line is written. So I see that the values for my line are 25, 20, 155, and 70. So I'm going to scroll back down and I'm going to fill those in. 25, 20, let's go back up. 155, 70. So 155, 70. So that's covered. Now the last weird thing I have to deal with is buffer. And I just want to go back here real quick. It says that it's optional. So first, if I wanted to, I could just delete everything here. I could delete this comma, I could delete buffer, that could be gone. And it just says it expands the hit zone on the line. And what this means is lines are super skinny. So it might be frustrating to somebody if they try and hit the line and it's not exact because again, the line is super skinny. And the default is 0.1. So if I delete it, it's just going to be 0.1. I can go ahead and just get rid of it. Or if I decide that I want the computer to not be as sensitive, I want it to pick up that I'm on top of the line sooner than when I'm actually on it, I could give it a value like 0.3. That's a completely arbitrary number. I can mess with it. I can play with it once it's running. I just want to test and see what it does. So in my conditional, I'm going to go ahead and write in my L weight variable. And I'm going to say that when my mouse is touching this line, I want L weight to stop being 5. And I want it to increase to, let's say 15. That's a huge increase, so I should definitely see it. So let's go ahead and hit play. And whoop, it got really big. You guys will notice when I go off of it, nothing happens, and that's because I don't have an else statement yet. So let's go ahead and code in my else. And my else is that L weight should become 5. Just 5, nothing fancy. So let's hit play. Let's touch it, come off. Touch it, come off. Yay! So again, if I wanted to, I could mess with this number. I could plug in whatever I wanted. If I wanted to experiment with like that hit zone, if you like it like this, leave it like this. If you want to experiment with deleting, feel free to delete. Now, here's what you guys are going to do for the rest of this project. You have 2 rectangles and a triangle to figure out. And I know we haven't covered those together, but I truly believe that now you guys can use the documentation table to find the functions you need and program in something that will change about these. So you guys are going to scroll back up to documentation table of contents. You are going to find the functions you need for when a point collides with a rectangle and when the point collides with a triangle. And you are going to write in those conditional statements. Now, what you choose to change is kind of up to you. We did colors yesterday, so you could continue with fill colors, you could do stroke colors, stroke weight, you could even change the size of these shapes if that's something that makes you happy. But for each of these shapes, they will need a variable that makes something change. Good luck, guys. If you have questions, again, go to Slack, send me an email. I am so excited for what you guys are making. I know we don't always realize it, but this is making you wildly powerful programmers, and your future projects are going to be fantastic. Good luck, guys.